Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the first tutorial. So this tutorial won't be that interesting, there won't be any programming, just setting up the basic tools to start developing with LibGDX. So sorry for the bad audio quality, I'll make sure it's fixed by the next tutorial, but I hope you enjoy this one. So start off by going to eclipse.org. Eclipse is an IDE that we're going to use, so it's basically just a program that you code in. It's like a text editor with extra features for programming. So go to eclipse.org, click download, get IDE for Java EE developers, get whichever bit is architecture is best for your computer. So if you're running a 64-bit computer, use that. 32-bit, use this one. So I'm using Linux. So the steps for Linux and Windows and Mac should pretty much be the same. And click download. Okay, so I'm going to skip some of the longer download and loading parts so you guys don't have to watch it. So I'm going to download this and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have it downloaded now, so I just need to extract it. On Linux it's going to come in a tar.gz folder. On Windows and Mac it should be a zip. Alright, so I extracted it, and you should have an executable. You just run it, and it's going to load up. When you load Eclipse, it's going to ask you for your workspace. So it's basically just a folder where it's going to put all your projects in. I suggest that if you're doing big LibGDX projects, that you have separate workspaces for every game. So I don't suggest putting it as default. So I created a workspace called tutorial, and I'll just open it. Okay, there's a little error. I'll fix that. Alright, looks like it's working. I'll skip the loading. Alright, so when it loads up for the first time, it's going to have a bunch of windows. You can pretty much close all of it unless you want to use some of the tools. Personally, I like to have a nice clean slate with a project explorer, and I also like to have the console. So I'll put the console on here. So the console will basically just put all errors or any print lines that you do. So if you want to put some text into the console during your program to see if things work, that's a way of troubleshooting your program for bugs. Okay, so first we need to install some plugins. So click Help, and then Eclipse Marketplace. So this is a marketplace of different plugins you can get for Eclipse. It has some nice tools in there. You can search around yourself if you want to get something interesting. For this tutorial, we need to get Gradle, a GWT plugin, and the Android ADT plugin. Okay, so just search up Gradle. We'll start with that one. Okay, click install, confirm, accept the terms, and finish. Alright, now it's going to take some time to install. Alright, then it's going to ask you to restart Eclipse, so just do that. Okay, so that's all loaded up. So now we have to get all the Android SDKs. So you have to get to this page. You can either copy this URL or you can search Android SDK on Google and it should be the first result. So then you just scroll down and you want to go to the SDK tools only section. You don't want to get Android Studio, that's another IDE. You can get it if you want to develop Android apps, but for this, using LibGDX is better just to use Eclipse or IntelliJ, but I prefer Eclipse. So if you're using Windows, get this. If you're using Mac or Linux, get these. So just download them, and I'll meet you at the folder once it's extracted. Okay, so it should extract into a folder like this. It's going to be a bit different for Windows and Mac. There should be an executable. For Linux, for some reason, they didn't do it the same. So for Android and Windows and Mac, it should be SDK Manager executable. And for Linux, you have to run the Android script. So I'll show you guys for Linux. For Windows and Mac, it should just be some sort of executable. So for Windows, just an exe file, you can double click and it'll load up right away. So I'll go into the folder. Oops, misspelled my password. Okay. Oh, so no matter what platform you're using, it should load up a program that looks like this. And it's going to connect to the internet and find all the latest Android versions. So what you want to install is you want to get the latest tools, latest platform tools, and latest build tools. It's also recommended that you get the latest Android version. Also get the documentation for the Android platform, the sample for SDK, and the sources for Android SDK. Those are the basic things you need to develop on the platform. I'd suggest getting Android 5.0.1 at the time of this video. It's a platform that's relatively new and a lot of people are using it now. So get the same stuff for that platform. And if you want to have a big market share for your app or whatever, your game, I'd suggest getting Android 2.2. You should also get support repository, support library, Google Play Services, Google Play repository. And if you're on Windows or Mac, get the drivers also. And if you plan on using an emulator for Android, get this, the HackSem. Just click install. I already installed it. It's a pretty big download, so I don't really feel like re-downloading it for the tutorial. And once that's done, we'll go back into Eclipse. Okay, so now we're back into Eclipse. So we have to go install something new now. So make sure your Android is saved in a folder where it can stay there permanently, because it's going to be a little bit of a pain later on if you move it. So go back to the marketplace. Takes a little bit of time to load because that's to connect to the servers. Alright, now search up Android again. Well, not again, but search it up. Alright, so you want to scroll down to get some older stuff. I installed this one by accident before. So what you want to get is this one, the one with a lot of downloads. So this used to be supported by Google, but not so much anymore since they switched their IDE to Android Studio. But since you're using LibGDX and you want to also be able to deploy on other platforms, it's best that you stick with Eclipse or IDEA IntelliJ. So we'll just click install on this. Confirm. Alright, accept. I'd just like to mention, if you encounter some sort of pop-up like this, just click OK. Alright, so let's restart Eclipse. Okay, so the video is running a little bit long, so I'm not going to show you guys how to install the GWT plugin in this video. I'll show it later on because there's actually a lot more steps to installing GWT, and if you want to actually deploy the app on HTML5. So I'll explain it in another video, and it'll be quite long actually. I forgot how long it was to install that stuff. Okay, well now the Android plugin's installed. So what you want to do is go into Windows, or Window Preferences, click on Android, and then you want to set your SDK location. So this is the folder that you extracted before with all your SDK tools and SDK Manager. So you just want to browse to that folder and select it and click Apply, and then it's going to load all the Android versions that you installed. So mine's already set up, so that's good. So I'm done there. So now I'm going to do something that'll be useful for developing for Android. So you go into Window, Show View, other, and it should be an Android folder, and then you do Logcat and OK. Logcat is basically a terminal, but for Android. So you can output text and it'll show in there, and it'll also tell you if there's errors and things like that if you're connecting to an Android device to test the game. Okay, so I like to put it all together like that. Alright, so all this part for Eclipse is pretty much set up. So now let's set up the LibGDX stuff. Go back to your web browser on Google, search GDX setup. Alright, click the download. Should bring you to a website that looks like this. Just click download setup app. It's a jar file, so you have to have Java to use it. But you should already have Java if you're planning on developing a Java program. You can search up online how to do that later on, but I'm pretty sure you need it to install Eclipse anyways. So just save it. It's not a big download. So click folder, alright, and then it'll run it with Java. Oh, if you're on Linux, you're going to have to mark it as an executable to give it permission. So I'll just do this. Open it up. Alright, now it should give you a program that looks like this. So you just set some settings for your program. So the name, I'm going to call it tutorial. Tutorial land. Why not? So you guys commented on the last devlog for Archipelago that you wanted to have a more tutorial kind of game like Archipelago for the tutorial. So for package, if you don't have a website, you can put me dot a username you're used to, so me would be Video Boy, dot, and then the project name, so tutorial land. But since I do have a website, HollowBit.net, so you just do the opposite, HollowBit.net. You'll notice that in many tutorials for Java or other programming languages, that for packages and things like that, that's just the basic naming convention. Okay, the main game class, I usually just like to call it game. It doesn't really matter too much. Destination, that's just where you want to save it. So I'll just choose go into workspace, tutorial workspace, and I like to create a folder inside the workspace that I made and call it game workspace. This is where all the game stuff is stored. Android SDK, the same thing as before, just go to the path of your SDK. So mine is in my home folder. Okay, sub-projects. If you want to have for all these platforms, just check them all. We're not going to be using Box2D, so uncheck that. We might do controllers later on, so I'll keep that checked. You can also look at third-party extensions if you want to have some other tools. I'm not going to use any of these right now since I don't really need them. I can easily add them later on using Gradle. Alright, so all that's done. And I think I'll add AI just in case. It might be interesting. And click generate. Whoops. Oh, right. Package name cannot have capitals. I forgot about that. And generate. It might give you an error about your Android build, but if it still runs, it's okay. It says we're using a more recent version than recommended, but that's okay. It works anyways. I've done it before. Okay. And then it's going to download different dependencies for Gradle and everything and set it up for you. So I'll skip by this. Also, I did mention that the tutorial game is going to be a multiplayer game. I'm not going to add multiplayer in just yet. Some people have suggested that the videos be more tutorial oriented for people who don't know how to program yet. So going into multiplayer right away might be really kind of scary and just really complicated to start off with. So I'm going to start with some more basic stuff, and then we'll get into the more complicated things later on, like multiplayer. So I won't set up the server program just yet. Okay, so it's done loading up. It says build successful. Took about 10 minutes. So it actually gives you instructions on how to import it into Eclipse. So we'll just follow that. So let's go back to Eclipse. To File, Import. Since you installed Gradle, you should have the Gradle folder, Gradle project. Alright, now you browse for the root folder. So that's the folder that you selected in the LibGDX program. So for me, I put it in tutorial workspace, game workspace. Click OK, click build model, and it's going to process it, so I'll skip through this. Alright, so once it's done, it loads up the project like this. Just select that, so you load all of them into it, and finish. So it's going to take some time again. Alright, and now it's done. So you go into your project explorer. There you go, you have all your projects. Now you might have an error here with Android. So we can go into here, like other, minimize that, you go into general, do problems. So if you have any errors, you can use the problems thing and you can see them. So unable to resolve target Android 19. So the way to solve that error, it's quite common for LibGDX, is you go into your Android settings and the preferences and find your API level that you want to use. So 21 for me. Go to Project Explorer and go to project.properties. And then here for your target, just change it to whatever target you want. So 21. Save it. It's going to rebuild everything and refresh. Load the new stuff for Android 5.0.1. And the error should just go away. Oh, there's just one last little thing I want to show you guys. If you want to test out the program for desktop, you can just right click it and do run as Java application. You can do the same thing for Android, just do Android application. Like I said, HTML is a bit more complicated. In iOS, I don't even know how to do it yet. I'll have to learn soon. So desktop launcher, click OK, and then it'll launch the little LibGDX demo program. So the red background and the LibGDX logo. So thank you guys so much for watching this first episode. I know it's kind of long. It's around 18 minutes, which is quite a bit of time for a tutorial. But the next ones will be shorter, and this was a setup, so it's kind of normal, lots of waiting around. It could take like an hour to install it. So yeah, leave a like if you like the video, and also give some suggestions for what you want to do in the game, like what do you want the game to be about and things like that. Or some ideas that you want to develop for the next tutorials. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday for another tutorial, and also this weekend there's a new devlog on Sunday. So see you guys then.